Top story we're tracking for our viewers is coming from West Asia, where Israel's military has acknowledged its complete failure to prevent Hamas's attack on October 7, 2023. The Israeli army published a scathing internal probe into the attack on Thursday. A senior military official said that the military acknowledges it was overconfident and had misconceptions about Hamas's military capabilities before the attack. Now, another military official, briefing reporters about the report's contents, said that too many civilians died that day, asking where was the IDF. Following the probe report's release, Israel's military chief general Herzi Halevi accepted the responsibility. Halevi had already resigned last month, citing his failure to stop the attack.
I embrace it. The responsibility is mine. I was the commander of the army on October 7th. I bear my own responsibility, and I also bear the full responsibility for all of you. And I acknowledge in every subordinate of mine who made a mistake as part of my own mistake.
It's crucial for our viewers to note that the investigation highlighted the vast difference between the IDF's perceptions of Hamas and the reality. The probe found that the IDF believed that Hamas in Gaza did not pose a significant threat to Israel and that it was uninterested in a large-scale war. Now, before the attack, the Israeli military believed that Hamas tunnel networks had been significantly degraded and that any cross-border threat would be thwarted by Israel's high-tech border fence. Now, further, the military intelligence assumed that Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was a pragmatist who was not seeking a major escalation with Israel. And Hamas was focusing its capabilities on rocket fire and not a ground invasion. Now, as per the report, IDF is now determined that Hamas had decided to launch such an attack in April 2022. It was at 85 readiness by September 2022. Hamas decided in May 2023 to launch the attack on October 7th. Meanwhile, Israel's Attorney General Gali Baharav Meari has ordered a criminal investigation to be opened into the alleged ties between officials working in the Prime Minister's office and Qatar. The announcement followed recent revelations that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's former spokesman, Eli Feldstein, who had been charged with harming national security in a case involving the theft and leaking of classified IDF documents, worked for Qatar via an international firm contracted by Doha to feed top Israeli journalists pro-Qatar stories. Now, the investigation will be carried out by the Shin Bet and the police. Meanwhile, Egypt says negotiations between Israel and Hamas on the next phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal have begun in Cairo. Egypt's State Information Service said that officials from Israel, Qatar and the US have started intensive discussions on the second phase of the ceasefire. Now, Israel has said it will impose restrictions on movement during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, where hundreds of thousands normally visit Jerusalem to pray. A government spokesperson said that the usual restriction for public safety will be in place as they have been every year, adding that the restrictions will target people seeking to foment violence and attacks, and all peaceful visitors will be allowed access to religious sites. Now, this comes as a Palestinian man rammed a car into a bus stop in the north of Israel on Thursday, wounding 13 people in an incident they were treating as a terror attack. Israel's first responders said a team treated injured people at the site of the incident, including a 17-year-old girl who was in critical condition. The suspect was a 53-year-old Palestinian from the Jenin area who was residing in Israel unlawfully with his family. Now, for more on this, we are joined by Alex Tryman, who is the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of Jewish News Syndicate. He's joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And let me cut straight to the chase. Alex, according to you, who do you think is responsible for Israel's failure?
Well, I think it's a systemic failure all up and down the military and intelligence levels. I mean, the prime minister can only act on information that he's getting from his intelligence agencies. And it's clear that the entire military and the intelligence really misgauge Hamas's intentions, their readiness, and Israel had not properly deterred them nor secured their border or had enough troops near the Gaza Strip on the morning of October 7th. So, I mean, it's a complete failure up and down the entire system.
And Alex, how do you think now with the probe being out, how are the civilians going to respond to this, and where would the responsibility to take accountability actually lie?
Well, first of all, I mean, I think it's still important to keep the blame on Hamas here. I mean, they're the terrorist organization that made this attack, and they're the ones that have this genocidal approach toward attacking civilians in Israel. But I think that the civilians understand that there was a systemic failure. I mean, it's already about 16 months since this war started. And at some point, I do think that you're seeing the top levels of the military, including Herzi Halevi, announce his resignation. I imagine that the heads of the Shin Bet, the Internal Security Service, and the Mossad also may hand in their resignations at a certain point. I don't think that the Prime Minister intends to resign over this. I think that he's hoping that victory in the war will help to strengthen his domestic appeal among the voters. But ultimately, we have to see what happens. The same people that are pushing for Netanyahu to be blamed for this attack and want him out of office are the ones that have wanted him out of office well before October 7th.
Right, Alex. We'll be closely watching the developments in the story, and thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights with us.
Thanks for having me.